How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Hammer, House of Horror. This is episode 8, and this one's entitled Children of the Full Moon. This is from November 1st, 1980, and is directed by Tom Clegg. Tom Clegg, if you guys remember in the show, he's the guy who directed episode 5, The House That Bled to Death. And this episode stars Christopher Cazenove and Celia Gregory, and overall this is a pretty solid episode. I mean, I do have a few gripes with it, and it's not the best episode ever, but overall a pretty good and pretty solid episode. This is about a young married couple, newlyweds, and they're going to a cabin in the middle of nowhere for their honeymoon when their car breaks down, so they go to this creepy old farmhouse with this lady and a ton of kids. So yeah, it's kind of a creepy kids episode. It's kind of a mystery what's going on here type episode. And yeah, that creepy farmhouse in the middle of nowhere with tons of creepy kids. I remember that part. It's very striking, and it's definitely a very memorable setup. But all that being said, that's the first half. This episode, for whatever reason, is a 2-act structure, and the first half is super memorable, but I'm not gonna lie, that second half is kind of forgettable. I watched this episode initially a year or two ago, and when I rewatched it to do this, I forgot that second half was even a thing. I saw it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this part, and overall, the second half is not the best. They get out, and they start to kind of question reality. And I really feel like if you were going to do the episode this way, it'd be better if the questioning reality bit was just a stinger at the end, or if the whole children in the house thing was done really quickly at the beginning and left a lot vaguer, and the whole episode was questioning reality. Maybe you could do it that way. But as it stands, it's just a case of, hey, I was really enjoying that first half. Why'd you change it? And the second half isn't terrible. It's just not near as good as the first half. There's some interesting things with the wife being kind of creepy and him not being sure what's real. But yeah, it's not as good as the first half. But that being said, there is a creature in this movie, quite a famous creature. Now, most of you will know, just from the title, Children of the Full Moon, what creature this is, and if you're not sure, the prologue, before the credits even roll, is a good, strong implication who it might be. But that being said, if you somehow haven't figured out who it is, go ahead and go watch the episode now, because I do want to talk about this creature. Give you a minute. The creature in this is the werewolf. The werewolf, a classic monster, and actually, this is Hammer's only classic monster episode. You would have thought with Hammer that one of these would have been a vampire episode, but no, there's only this one episode with the werewolf, and that's it. I really wish Hammer House of Horror went for more than just one season, because I would have really loved to see them do more with other classic monsters, you know, maybe reinvent Frankenstein, or the Mummy, or bring in the Phantom of the Opera. But at least with Hammer, you would have thought that they would have done a few vampire episodes, but this is the only classic monster, and hey, it's pretty cool to see the werewolf around, especially because the werewolf only got one movie, Hammer's Curse of the Werewolf. That was really good. If you guys haven't seen Curse of the Werewolf, it is one of Hammer's best movies, and I definitely say check it out. I have a review for it as well. At the end of the episode, the Hammer playlist will pop up. You can click there and you can find my review for Curse of the Werewolf. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It is a really good werewolf movie, and it does things a little differently, you know? But yeah, great to see the werewolf back. He's kept primarily off screen, and it's probably due to budget, but it does make him become this big, mysterious force that when he starts to kind of show up a little bit, you're like, oh dang, is that him? Is that the werewolf? So even though budget kept him off screen for most of this, he is still a pretty cool creature, and I definitely do like this episode. But anyway, oh, also, really good werewolf jump scare in here. I won't spoil where it is, but there is a really good werewolf jump scare. Anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and talk a bit about the plot. I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, but I do want to say my piece on a few plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what the episode's about. So I'm going to analyze the episode, but I'll be avoiding the end. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive right in. We open up with that pre-credits scene. We see a young girl with 2 German shepherds, and at first she appears to be petting an animal, and then the camera pans around, and it's revealed she's got blood all over her face, and she was actually eating this, I think it's a little lamb. So yeah, a pretty good cue early on we're going to be dealing with werewolves. And also this family has 2 German shepherds. I love shepherds. Hills Have Eyes, another good German shepherd movie. But anyway, after the credits we meet our main characters, this young couple, newlyweds, and he's kind of a workaholic, and they haven't had their honeymoon yet. So after he resolves some business, the boss lends them access to a cabin in the woods, gives him some time off, and says, hey, go do your honeymoon, you know? So they're driving into the woods to finally get the honeymoon when their car starts to speed up, and the husband can't figure out how to stop it. The car is speeding down the road. He tries to use the brake, the emergency brake. He even tries to turn the key and it snaps off in his hands. So yeah, he can't stop the car, and he keeps it on the road for as long as he can till it eventually slows down and he drives off the road into a ditch. Now, this is apparently, like, it seems like that some supernatural force caused this to happen. Now, werewolves don't typically have car-wrecking powers, so I don't know how the werewolf was able to cause their car to mess up with his mind. Granted, in Hammer's werewolf movie, the werewolf's implied to be more like a demon, so maybe this is within a Hammer werewolf skill set. Anyway, the car is on the side of the road, and after this scene, I couldn't help but notice this is actually a weird Hammer House of Horror trope. Like, it's kind of weird how some shows will develop weird little tropes that you wouldn't really think right off the bat. But cars. In the episode The 13th Reunion, one of the initial events that sparks the episode is the boyfriend dies in a car wreck. Later on in the episode Growing Pains, a very similar scene to this would happen where the car goes out of control for a little bit. And then there's a car wreck towards the end of the episode Charlie Boy. So yeah, this is episode 8, and out of these 8 episodes, 4 of them have featured scenes where a car's out of control or wrecks. So yeah, kind of weird that that's one of Hammer's tropes, but hey, kind of odd to notice a pattern. But anyway, after they get out of their car, they start to wander down the road until they see an abandoned farmhouse, and they go up to it looking for help. And as they get closer, they start to notice they're hearing the laughter of kids, even though the house seems abandoned. They go inside and they meet a nice old woman who's apparently raising the kids there, and they ask for the telephone. The husband calls around and finds that there's no garage terribly close by, and they can get someone to help, but it won't be until tomorrow. And the old woman says, that's fine, you can stay with us overnight. And the husband leaves to go get their bags out of the car and come back. So the wife's alone in the house with the creepy kids, and we do get some fun creepy kids running around stuff. But we also get a scene where she sits down by the fire with a cup of wine, and she starts to talk to this woman who's running the house. Now, in this scene where she's talking to the old woman by the fire with the wine, if you look over her shoulder, you can actually see the rabbit from the episode Growing Pains. So that's a fun little Easter egg there. It's the clean version of the rabbit that the mother tries to swap out with the old dirty one. It's sitting on a table just behind her chair. So, hey, a Hammer House of Horror Easter egg there for you. But anyway, they talk, and she starts to explain the kids, she's like, how many kids do you have? And she says, oh, 8 or so. And I really do want to say 8 or so. She's not entirely sure. That's always a sign that you have a lot of kids, when you can't remember the exact number quickly off the top of your head. Plus, there's a shot later in this episode, a wide shot, where you can see a lot of the kids, and I counted at least 10, so 8 is actually her downplaying it. But anyway, she has a lot of these kids. The woman asks about it, and she says, oh, they're not all mine. My husband was married before, so that's why we have so many. But anyway, after they talk for a bit about how there's all these kids, the husband runs back into the house with no suitcases, and he said he was scared off because he saw something in the woods, a giant creature, half man, half wolf. Very scary. The old woman says, you probably missaw things, it was probably an angry stag, the woods is full of creatures, you two just go on to bed, we have a spare room for you. So they go to their bed, and quite quickly their luggage comes to them. Apparently the kids have no problems with the woods, and were able to get their bags relatively quickly. After getting their bags though, the woman says, hey, don't leave this room, you might spook the kids, just stay in here all night, okay? And they agree to do this, but then they find that they actually get locked in their room, and you do get some scary werewolf shenanigans, And overall, I'm like, wow, this episode's really heating up. It's really going to a cool place. But then it switches to the second half. I won't spoil exactly how, but needless to say, they get out of the farmhouse, and they start to call into question what really happened there. And yeah, it's not as memorable. You get some creepy stuff. The wife is off doing her own thing, which is kind of interesting. And the husband's trying to piece together what really happened. But I feel like if this was just a stinger at the end, it would have been better. Or if the whole episode was devoted to this, we could have really fleshed it out. Kept the children in the house thing very minimal and vague so that we as an audience could piece it together too. I don't know. It's just as it stands with this 50-50 thing, I like the first one a lot better, and I barely remembered the second half. And when I did this rewatch, I was like, oh yeah, there was a second half to this. Overall, I like the first half a lot better. The second half's okay. It's just a case of, hey, I like that, why'd you change it? But anyway, there's still some good stuff, but yeah, not as good. Now, in regards to questioning the ending, in regards to questioning reality, the episode Rude Awakening, I just feel, did this a lot better. So, yeah, Rude Awakening already did that questioning reality thing. I don't feel we really needed it again in this episode. However, it does build to a pretty fun climax. Like I said, the werewolf, primarily for budget reasons, is kept off screen. But when you do finally start to see him, it's pretty like, oh man, is this the guy I've heard so much about? And it really creates a bit of build-up. So when you finally get to see more and more of him, it's really amazing stuff. So I do really like that. And yeah, kind of sucks that this is our one and only classic monster episode of this show. Like I said, it's Hammer. You think we'd at least get a vampire one. Unless there's one I don't remember, but I don't think so. I really wish Hammer House of Horrors had multiple seasons, because, yeah, just imagine. Vampire episodes, a Frankenstein, a Mummy, a Phantom of the Opera. I could have gone for a lot more of these, and Hammer House of Horror was cool, but sadly only one season. I guess I could try to dig up Hammer House of Mystery and Suspense, but that doesn't have as good of releases. Anyway, definitely recommend this episode. Wasn't a huge fan of the second half, but still had a lot going for it. And hey, gotta love a werewolf. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Hammer playlist. And in the Hammer playlist, you can find my review for a lot of the classic monster movies. And that includes my review for The Curse of the Werewolf. And you can also find my review for all the past episodes of this show. So Episodes 1 through 7 are already there waiting, plus a whole series review I did back when I watched the show for the first time. So yeah, lots of more Hammer stuff there. Every past episode of Hammer House of Horror. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.